Welcome to this discussion about how incumbent insurers are going to embrace the Insurtechs for mutual benefit. We will be going through the current challenges that the incumbent insurers and the insurance industry is facing at the moment. I'll be talking somewhat about where Insurtechs, in my opinion, are placed in the whole value chain scheme in the insurance industry. I'll be discussing some of the challenges that incumbent insurers are facing when trying to work with Insurtechs, and also some of the challenges Insurtechs are facing trying to work with incumbent insurers. Luckily, I also have very good experience in getting this strange marriage to work, and this is what I'm going to talk about at the very end of this presentation. We'll be talking about how do we actually make the connection between incumbent insurers and Insurtechs to work. So, ready to go? Let's move on. Let me start by giving you a brief overview of the state of the insurance industry as I see it here in the Middle Eastern region. But in my experience, this pretty much applies to the rest of the world as well. And what we're seeing is we're having an aging C-suite. The top level management of the insurance companies are becoming increasingly older, and it's difficult to find and attract young new top talent to take the key roles in the insurance industry. We know that almost all incumbent insurers are really fighting legacy systems, the old systems, ways of working. We know that a part of this is also caused because of the processes that we're working on, the silo mentality that we see in many of the incumbent insurers, and all of these things end up in providing us with an incumbent insurer that is fairly slow to adapt to new things, to the new technology. However, when we are looking at the future of insurance, I can guarantee you that the big tech, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Googles of the world, they are coming. They will be starting to distributing insurance. We know that our customers, the end users, they are expecting everything to be here and now, digital, for me, what I need, when I need it, and only to the extent that I need it. And let's not forget, when we are talking about insurance, we're talking about a product that basically nobody really wants to buy. It's a product that, in many cases, we buy because it's mandated. We have to buy the product. It's a product that we find expensive, and it's a product that we pray that we'll never be using. Because if you're using your insurance, it means that you've had an incident that you need to cover. So it's a product that's very difficult to sell. Adding to this, the insurance industry doesn't have the best reputation. We have this reputation of having a lot of things in the fine print, and when there is a claim, we are not really covering everything that the customers expected that we would be covering. We have a reputation of it is easy to cheat the system, meaning that if you're not cheating the system, you're paying too much for your insurance. So there are many factors that we are fighting against when we are looking at selling insurance, offering insurance to the end users. However, just sitting back and saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it, we just have to hang in there, that's simply not an option in my opinion. We have to do something. We have to make sure that we are following the trends. We have to make sure that we are changing our companies to actively work towards the expectations of our customers. We have to become significantly more digital. We have to become much more focused on removing the troubles of working with insurance companies. That could be from the quote to claim experience. We have to automate the processes so the customers, they get an Amazon-like experience also when they're dealing with the insurance company. So focus on the optimization of our processes, the automation, the digitalization of processes is of course key and core for any insurer to just stay relevant in the markets of tomorrow and maybe even in the markets of today as well. We as insurers also have to explore new digital distribution models. I mean, we've seen examples of peer-to-peer insurance products trying to take off, and they will succeed. The idea of peer-to-peer insurance is a good idea, and I believe it will succeed now and in the future. But in order to be able to work with peer-to-peer insurance as a distribution model, you need to have your systems in place, the ways of working with the customers. You could consider partnering with your Insurtechs or Xtechs to increase your distribution reach, to increase your customer service, and to make the whole interaction between you and the customers much, much easier. Turning our attention to the Insurtechs. When you are reading and hearing about Insurtechs, it may sound like they fix all problems. So just work with Insurtechs and you have no problems whatsoever. The fact is that Insurtechs typically focus on specific areas of the value chain where they do become very, very efficient or effective or innovative. But very few Insurtechs actually offer the end-to-end value chain, meaning that if an insurance company, an incumbent insurance company, wants to work with an Insurtech, the incumbent insurer will have to understand exactly where in the value chain this specific Insurtech will fit in. Is it in the sales and marketing? Is it in the distribution? Is it the claims management, fraud detection, customer engagement? Or where is it? Where is that niche that this specific Insurtech fits in? There is, to my knowledge, not one Insurtech for an incumbent insurer that ticks all the boxes. So an incumbent insurer needs to go out and find many Insurtechs if this is the strategic direction that the incumbent insurer is taking to increase the collaboration with Insurtechs. Before moving on and trying to discuss how that is going to work, I would like to take a step back and discuss some of the characteristics of the Insurtechs. Because the Insurtechs are significantly different from incumbent insurers. And that's for many reasons, but I think it's fair to say that the clock frequency of Insurtechs is really, really high. The heart is beating fast, so to speak. And that's for many reasons. One of the reasons is the investors. The investors of the Insurtech, they've been obviously investing money, trust, confidence in the company. And typically, and I'm not saying anything here, but typically the expectations of return on investment, increase in revenue, growth are not fully met. And that means the investors is starting to breathe down the neck of the Insurtech saying, can we please start seeing some revenue generation now? Please give us some of the numbers that you promised us, which makes the Insurtech quite focused on getting contracts signed now and here, getting things done, getting things moving. And they can get things moving because they have a startup culture, they have a new digital culture where things are moving or capable of moving fast. There is very short decision-making processes, and you can basically turn the company around on a night time. And this is further supported by technology. Most Insurtechs are building technology from scratch, meaning that technology is modern, it's easy to change, easy to maintain, easy to adapt, meaning that the Insurtechs, they have a very high clock frequency. They simply operate at a very high rate. The heart rate is beating really, really fast. Let's get back to what I just said about the incumbents looking at working with Insurtechs. The incumbents need to understand that they cannot just find a one-size-fits-all to solve all the issues in the legacy systems, in the culture, in the silos that the incumbent insurers are facing. They have to understand exactly where in their value chain they need change the most. And working with Insurtechs will help adding these capabilities or expanding the core competencies of the insurance company. So I firmly believe that the incumbent insurer needs to be very aware of strengths and weaknesses in their own value chain and use that knowledge to seek out exactly what Insurtechs they should be working with to complement these weaknesses or strengthen the strengths. And this could be, as I said, capabilities within distribution, within claims management, fraud management, customer engagement, provider management, anything where the incumbent insurer needs to get a push and increase their competences. But easy to find the Insurtech, a little more difficult to get it to work in the real world. And let me explain why that is. When we remember looking at the heartbeat of the Insurtech, the heart was beating fast. It is quite the opposite when you look at the incumbent insurer. This is a proud, long-standing organization, has its culture, its processes, and it has a significantly lower clock frequency. The heart is beating maybe with more power, but slower. And again, there are many good reasons for this. You have an organization that has been built over many, many years. You have what I like to call kingdoms. You have the silos of the different business lines, the different operations, where you have a strong manager who's been successful for many, many years, and therefore quite reluctant to change, quite reluctant to let new people coming and telling him or her what to do. You have your bureaucracy, the red tape, your legal and compliance. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have legal and compliance. I'm saying that in incumbent insurers, the legal and compliance can be a little more difficult than it may need to be because it's inherited for so many years within the organization. Adding to this, you have the culture. Especially a culture when you are starting to bring in Insurtech, you will feel this sense of us versus them. You have the incumbent insurer, and this is a proud organization that's been successful for many, many years. And now this young digital attacker is coming and trying to tell them what to do. There will be resistance working with this. You have the incumbent insurer's existing culture, the kings and queens of the company that's been used to running the company as it's been successfully for many, many years. And now things have to change, which also feeds the resistance towards the new changes. And at the end, again, you have the legacy systems, the technology that in many ways make working with Insurtechs very difficult. You have two different systems that you need to merge in order for everything to get to work. Having the Insurtech with the fast heartbeat and the incumbent with the slower and maybe more powerful heartbeat, we need to find a way of making this work. We need to find a shared common clock frequency. So the Insurtechs understand how to work with the incumbents, but also the incumbents understand and appreciate how to work with the Insurtechs. We have to find a shared clock frequency. I believe in order to do so, we have to focus on at least 4 different areas. The first is providing this partnership with adequate focus, both with the Insurtech but also with the incumbent, making this something that the whole organization, or at least the unit, is very focused on how getting it to work and focused on it's happening and the top management would want it to happen. We need it to happen. Another thing that I like to do is set shared targets. If the Insurtech and the incumbent are sharing targets for the success of this partnership, I guess you can say that the units or the teams are more or less forced to work together to make this work. So you can't just end up in a situation where you're blaming this party or that party simply because you are in the same boat together towards the same targets. Another thing that I'd like to highlight is the pragmatism in doing this. Typically, if you engage as an incumbent insurer with an Insurtech, it can be a very big scale project that is supposed to revolutionize a whole area of the value chain. And that's all good and fine. I, however, would recommend the first couple of projects becoming a little bit more pragmatic. Because if we shoot too high, you may lose that focus that I spoke about, that focus that this is exactly what we are trying to do now. And you'll become defocused and not really sure on which of the areas we have to focus on. A sense of pragmatism into this makes it less intrusive also into the organization to get this done, and less threatening to the existing kingdom, so to speak, in the incumbent insurance company. And then, of course, put organizational spotlight on getting this to work, having the teams working with the Insurtech focused and celebrated for whenever they do something good, and informing about the process, taking the unknown, dangerous thinking out of the organization, so people knowing what's going on and thereby are more assured that this is not too dangerous for the organization. It's actually something that's going to help us going forward. A good way of doing this and setting the shared targets is to look at the house of digital transformation, which basically encompasses all the areas that a digital transformation is covering. Use this house as a kind of a guiding principle to say, where is it that we will start working with this Insurtech? This could also help the pragmatic approach to saying, okay, we're only going to touch these areas now, knowing that at some point in time we probably have to revisit or touch all the areas in the house of digital transformation. I think when you're watching this, you could just pause the video now and take a look at it, because it's actually quite extensive and gives you a a good overview of all the elements that you have to be aware of and work with when you are approaching a digital transformation. And note now, I've turned the working between incumbents and insurtechs into a digital transformation project, because this is what I believe ultimately it ends up with. You can't work with an insurtech as an incumbent if you are not transforming the way you're working, your processes, your culture, and transforming your technology at the same time. So engaging with an insurtech is a part of a digital transformation journey. And I also believe it's important to be aware of this when you are engaging with the insurtechs. I just wanted to give you one example of how you could set shared targets. Now we're talking about all these areas. Now, one target is to focus on what is the value that we're getting out of this relationship. That could be, we will reduce our claims handling time from 100 minutes to 20 minutes by the end of next year. We will increase our conversion rate from 2% to 7% by the end of this year. And this is our shared target. This is how we're working. These are very, very tangible goals. It is something that the insurtech should agree to, and it's something that the incumbent insurer can and should also agree to, and it's very measurable. You can say, are we going the right direction? Do we need to make some adjustments to secure that we are continuing towards the right direction? So these are just some of the examples. Make them very, very tangible and time-bound, and also ensure that everybody are aware of what they have to do when to reach those targets. I already touched upon the whole concept of resistance, and there is two types of resistance when we're talking about resistance in the relationship between incumbents and insurtech. You have the human resistance and you have the organizational resistance. And there are ways of addressing this to make sure, at least to ease the resistance. It is, in my opinion, almost impossible to remove it, because we as human beings, we do not like to change our habits. We do not like to change the ways we are working. And that goes for all of us. And working with an insurtech is seen as a change of habits, a change in ways of working. And there will be resistance, and that's perfectly okay. Especially if you're aware of it's there and you're aware of what to do about it. And here are some of the things that I would recommend that you take into consideration starting to work with insurtechs as an incumbent insurer. First of all, on the human resistance, communicate. There is no such thing as over-communication. Explain to people what's going on, why it's going on, the consequences. Be open and honest about if there are any consequences. Yes, this means that these jobs will have to be reskilled, upskilled, and put over here because we are changing the ways of working here. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Be open and honest. Your employees are smart people. They will know anyway. So you might as well just be open, completely honest, saying, we don't know this yet, but we know you are important for us and our success, and we will find a place for you. It may not be here. It may be that we have to re-educate you, but we're certain that you'll be right for this position after the re-education. So be open and honest. Work with clear roles and accountabilities and responsibilities. If you tell people, also during the transition phases, this is what we want you to do, this is how I measure you, and this is what good looks like for your role and for you, people, they know what you expect from them. It is much easier for them to work towards this and reduce the uneasiness if they're absolutely clear of what's expected from you by you and the management. If we want to turn our attention to the organizational resistance, we have the technology, which will be resistance in itself. Look up the videos that we have on multi-speed, bimodal, or two-speed IC, which is one of the things that I truly believe will help speed up the whole technology organization and implementation between insurtechs and incumbents. Again, move on with the shared targets, with the targets between the business units, the teams. Make sure that they're all working towards the same. Focus on optimizing your processes, even the day-to-day processes that you may not think are important. I would claim that you'd be able to optimize maybe 50% of your processes just by looking at how you're doing today and then just rethinking them, even without the use of software. Look at, do we need those forms? Do we actually need to talk to each other for this process, or can this just be improved by that person without having these two people to look at it as well? In my experience, you'll find so many hidden gems. And if you start realizing these hidden gems and optimizing the way you work, you simply also make it easier for insurtechs to work with you as an incumbent insurance company. There are many ways to deal with this resistance, and a first stepping point is to acknowledge it's there and accept it's there. It is okay, as I said. Resistance is there, and you won't be able to eradicate or remove it. So you have to work with it. Thinking about these ways, communicating, setting targets, expectation, being honest, are very, very good ways of dealing with organizational resistance. The last thing I want to say is when you are working with change processes and change projects, you will typically face a curve of motivation. In the beginning, many people will be motivated. They like new things, so they'll be motivated to talk about the new and be part of the new. But after some time, when this new becomes hard work, business as usual, we are starting to deliver, this is the time where we actually have to show the value. It becomes harder and less interesting, just hard work. And this is where you as management really have to be aware of communicating, motivating, celebrating victories, keeping the momentum up. Be aware that in the beginning, everybody wants to be part of it. It's exciting, it's fun. When it starts becoming business as usual after some months, the interest starts to die out, and the focus on the relationship between the incumbent and the Insurtech also dies out, which is frustrating, both for the Insurtech, but at the end also for the incumbent insurer. Understand when this fatigue is kicking in, and do a lot to raise that curve up. And then expect once the project nears its completion, the motivation starts to come again, because now we're soon done and we can start saying, see what we've done and how successful we are. Be aware of this curve, and be aware of it's in the middle between the start and the end that you really need to focus on celebrating the successes, focusing on communication, motivating people. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck in partnering up with Insurtechs. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.